Welcome everyone to this month's Exposing SEL webinar today on the topic of SAVVAS learning with Marcia Metzger of Parents on the Level and her special guest that she'll introduce to you shortly. All three of us are in Florida today, so there could be an event with the technology. We think not, but just in case, letting you know that this will be recorded as we always record. And they'll be on the parents, the webinar will be on the Parents on the Level website. But if we do lose the connection, we'll record it afterwards and post it there later. So we have recorded, and then following the presentation of Marcia and Jack today, we'll be taking your questions through the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. So I'll turn this over to Marcia. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, like she said, we are sitting under Tropical Storm Debbie. So if you hear a little background noise, you'll know why. So yes, I do. I'm totally excited today about this webinar because, you know, there's always a backstory to every single company that we expose, what it took to get this information to you. What is the story? How did we interact with the school, and just a lot of different things. So this one has a particular twist to it that I am just, it was interesting when I first started looking at SAVVAS learning myself. It was when I lived in Cook County, Georgia, but the biggest system close by me was Tift County, and that's where I cut my teeth and started looking through that school system. And I had noticed that Tift County, Georgia had spent $688,000 on SAVVAS learning. I think it was in 2022, after all of the massive funding was released from COVID and all of that nonsense. So anyway, there was a lot of coordination and planning with COVID in order to get all of this to you, and we can talk that at another time. But in the course of all of this, because I was doing so many other different companies as well before that, I was still involved in exposing them. I kind of had put SAVVAS on hold for a little bit. And I had gotten asked to come to the wonderful, beautiful area of Fernandina Beach by my guest, Jack Nucky. And that's who you see here. And he is with Citizens Defending Freedom, which is a fabulous organization of patriots that are working to expose and explore all of the things that are happening in our country right now in regard to elections, in regard to laws that they're trying to implement. And also, they are really doing the work in helping us expose what's taking place in the schools. So when I discussed with him when I did a presentation for his organization there in Fernandina Beach, he got fired up. He and a team of his folks, Rich Lampkin and some other wonderful patriots that were down there, got fired up. We even had school officials that were at that meeting that challenged things that I said. And we really had a good dialogue with these people, and we were able to really maintain factually what we were doing, and they couldn't discount it. We stood our ground. So anyway, Jack he got fired up, and now he was talking with me, and I said, you know, one I really want to get to is SAVVAS learning. And he's like, I'm going to go after it with you. And he did. So I want to say something to all of you. You know, many of us will look at webinars, we will look at, listen to podcasts, all of it, and we take in all this information, but you got to put feet to it. We can't just write articles or do podcasts or all of this or do posting on social media. We have to get involved at the local level. That's what Parents on the Level is all about, you know, on the level, at the level. And we partner with wonderful organizations like Protect Ohio Children with Diane and her group, and with CDF with Jack and his group. I work with several of his directors and everything throughout their state, and they are fabulous. So anyway, to say all of this is, when I went and did this presentation, he took it and he said, well, I'm going to try what this lady says, and I'm going to put it in action. So I'm going to turn it on over to Jack for a few minutes so he can let you know what happened and just tell us a little bit about his background. So yeah, Jack, let's first start a little bit about your background, where you came from and how you ended up as a patriot fighting in the ranks of CDF.
Sure. Yeah, I was a business guy, kind of minding my own business, raising our kids, and really didn't pay much attention to school boards um, or judge races or anything really, national election, big time. But we got here to Fernandina Beach, and we heard that they were raising the taxes, and they were raising taxes by 24% in our city. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's a problem. And so I started reaching out, and I talked to one of the city commissioners, and he said, Jack, people don't care. They care about the conservation and this and that. He said, I got 2 letters on the budget, and you were one of them. He said, they don't care. And I said, you're wrong, because everybody I've mentioned this to said, I can't believe that's going on, because what they do is they don't let it go into the public. They take sunshine laws and they publish it someplace, but it's on their website that nobody looks at, so that nobody ever knows what's going on. And so I met with a few people who are also not too happy about it, and we started this group called Common Sense Fernandina Beach. And I like to say I was just here, Gomer Pyle, doing my thing, not really knowing what I was doing. I was going to meetings at the city, the county. I wasn't even paying attention to the school board at the time. And I would go and I say, you can't raise taxes 24%. And they say, thank you, Mr. Naki. Boom, approved. I went back next year, a couple months earlier. I said, you can't do this tax raise again. They said, boom, approved. And so next time I started the next day, and we went through the process, and we got it to a point where they voted for the adjusted rollback rate, which is essentially flat tax. And then they went a few years ago to the rollback, which is a tax reduction for each individual. So we were making some good progress. And I had people calling me like I was the mayor. Hey, Jack, did you see this going on? And I'm like, I can't do all this. So I met the people at Citizens Defending Freedom, Steve Maxwell and the team. They were just starting out. They were doing it professionally. They had invested $1 million into researching what has happened. What do we need to do? They went out and reached out to experts, whether they were politicians, not to be trusted very much, or whether they were people in the church community, in other activist groups. And what they discovered is we need an organization that is faith-based, because this is a war on God. This is a spiritual
Right.
battle that we're going. And I'm like, well, I was just looking at taxes. And so my first training, it was amazing to me what the depth of the issues we have. And this was 3 years ago that we started that process. But we're faith-based first. We're professional with full-time people. We're local focused. So I'm here in Fernandina Beach. Nassau County is my area. That's what I focus on. Nowhere else. We have 7 counties in the state of Florida, and our counties work together. I find out what's going on in another county, we jump on it too. Find somebody like Marcia from somebody else, and we take our initiative on that. So we've got full-time people, we've got legal resources, and we've got media resources, as well as our national team. We're focused on schools, elections, elected officials, and we also follow the money. So what's interesting is as we look at all these, as Diane had said earlier, it's like whack-a-mole. There are issues all over the place. And so Marcia introduced, well, I trusted our school district. I knew the chair of the school board. I'm like, we don't need to do anything here. They got it. And then I talked to Marcia, and the first thing that she said was, you need to know who the vendors are in your county. She had this list of all these vendors in the Parents on the Level. And I said, oh gosh, well, so I did a public record request for those vendors. And I realized a lot of them are already here. So that's kind of how I got involved. And what do you think, Marcia? Where do we want to go from here?
Well, what I think is you've done a fantastic job of taking the roadmap that we're going to even list today. I'm going to have something that you can print out and just kind of follow a roadmap of different things that you can start collecting in your area where I call it going toe to toe with your district. And you don't have to be mean to do this. You just have to be assertive as far as saying, no, I know the law allows me to have this and I want to see it. I want to see it for myself and look for things that you know that they have. So tell us a little bit about that process, Jack, when you started getting access codes, especially. How all did that work out for you? Because I know that's something that everyone wants to try, but they're a little reluctant because, like you said, you feel like they're against you in some respects. So,
Well, it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. And people told me early on, because I want to get it done today. That's the business side of things. You get it done, you take a project and you work it. And what I found was the first thing you need to do is you need to meet the leaders. You need to meet the school board members. You need to meet the staff members. And they need to understand who you are and what you're trying to do. But you also have to pay attention to what's going on in the other counties. And what we found was lists of library books, lists of textbooks. We found out about sex education, and we looked at LGBTQ promotion that was going on in different counties around us. And then the concerns about lack of transparency, where people are going to fight us for doing the right thing. And so I learned what public records were. We started with a city, great program. We can do it online. We can call. We can do it anonymous. That doesn't always work. So we looked at the process of meeting the folks, going to their meetings, the city meetings, the county meetings, the school board meetings. And then I started getting much more involved in the school board because I realized this stuff is here. And so I would ask questions and I would get no answers. I was just working on Title IX today, and I had sent them a message a month ago. Can you do something with Title IX? Because we've got two different rules going on in Florida right now. We've got the governor saying one thing. We have the United States president saying something else. And I'm like, what are the kids and the teachers supposed to do? They're getting direction from two different things. They need a local message. I got no message back from them. So I sent them another note today. I said, I deserve an answer. I need to know what you guys are doing about this. So you have to ask questions, do it respectfully. We're not going to school board meetings and yelling and screaming. We're asking questions. And we get a lot of what I received at the beginning. Thank you very much. Next. They don't do the discussion. They don't really want to get you into it. But what was really interesting to me was in order to get the information, you have to keep asking questions. And with our public records requests, we're actually in a lawsuit right now over lack of public records. And we started with a public records request and we numbered it. I number them ED for education. And then I put the date 24/07/05 or 08/05 now. I'm in a different month. But what we do is we put that in the subject line, and then when they respond, it's still there when we go back. So now when I actually have to go to court, I've got all this information that says, this is when I first asked, this is what I asked for. And then when I didn't get that, I asked for this. And then I asked for a few other things with a different public record request number. And so now I have a record of all this information that I asked for and what they actually gave us. And when I showed that to our lawyer, he's like, this is a cut and dried case.
absolutely.
They're not giving you what is public information, and you should be able to see that.
Man, I'm delighted to hear that. And I love too that you even shared how to organize it by giving it a file name that also has meaning. Because like I know in Georgia, they have 3 days in which to respond. Is that the same here in Florida? How many days do they have to respond?
Could be up to 30 days. I think in North Carolina, when we made that ask, or South Carolina, it was 30 days. And they took every bit of the 30 days, even though they probably had a desk.
Yeah, I know in Georgia, they had 3 days in which to just respond to you, to let you know that they have the request and what it would take to produce what you've asked for. So that's fantastic information for everyone to use. And folks too, remember this, that whenever you get a denial from one of these people in the schools, you are going to make that part of your story. And you can tell that to the parents in the area, and you say, I'm having to take them to court. This is the lack of transparency. Why are they doing this? What are they hiding from us? This is our children, and two, it's to alarm parents and say, parents, the law says, I know in Georgia, it says, you can go on the spot and go look at this stuff yourself. See, I'm a citizen and I have to wait, but you can go in and you can look at it. The thing about it is these schools want the parents to do it while during the course of the day with work, during the work day. And if they would just simply give them the access codes to the program to let them see what they want to see or find out in the comfort of their home in the evenings, possibly that would be much more beneficial. But the thing is, they will try to sit on it, guard it, hide it, and not let parents even have that. They can only come and do it in the confines of that district office, is what I have found in several different areas in Georgia, and have heard the same report from other people that do the kind of work that we do. So that is
Well,
really
Marcia,
interesting.
Let me extend on that, because my first request for SAVVAS was the English Language Arts textbook. And I said, can I get a copy of the English Language Arts SAVVAS? And this was just because I wanted to see what they had. And so he invited me to the office. It might have taken a couple of weeks. I don't know if they had it in stock or whatever. And I go to this conference room, and he's got 6 bags spread out in the conference room, and each bag has 2 large textbooks and a few other little things in it. And I said, okay, I'll sit there and look at this. And I took the first book and I started flipping through it. And I realized it's going to take some time. And I do not want to spend my whole day at the school district's office in a conference room looking at these books. So, but what I noticed is that they have something called SAVVAS Realize, and that is an online reference tool for the children who are using the books. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. All of this is actually online. The entire textbook is online. All of their online linkages are online. And I said, well, shoot, I'm going to ask for the access to that online material for that textbook. And within a few days, they gave me the online access. And boy, I was able to go to town, because I can look at this, I can go and search it on the internet, and I can really start telling a story of what's in that textbook.
Exactly. So when we're looking at SAVVAS and when we transition into this conversation, because pretty much, some of the people that are on here probably have that in their school district now, or they just want to learn about it to be able to tell others if it should come their way, whatever. Because a lot of people just want to know what's out there, what all of these publishers are doing. So for whatever reason, people are tuning in today, if they needed the specific hit on SAVVAS. One of the things we know is that SAVVAS is a rebranding of Pearson, and Pearson is headquartered in London, England. So there is the rebranding. SAVVAS literally, they literally rebranded their name because they liked the word savvy and thought that it was just a clever way to rebrand and name. They literally have said that. I've got a screenshot of it on our PDF that I'm going to have uploaded by this evening. Now, SAVVAS Learning, though, I want to ask you first, as far as I know you've looked at history, or wasn't it the history that you had looked at? World
Social
history,
studies,
right?
yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And tell me, or tell our audience, what you were discussing with me the other day, because I've really gone down the road of ELA with them, and you've gone on the other. Tell them about the creation story, so to speak, or maybe not creation, but tell them about the world origins that you found out about with
Well,
SAVVAS.
sure, it's their own version of creation. And what you find in these textbooks is they've been sanitizing them for years from having anything that is biblical or God-based in them. So I opened the textbook, and for the social studies textbook, it was being adopted. And so I had a 30-day period for residents to actually contest a book that actually is going to be adopted right now, versus the other one that was already there. And so I asked them for the online access. I got the online access. And on page 2, it talked about people that lived 3 million years ago named hominids. And I'm like, what is that? I had to look it up. I'm like, what the heck? And so these are the small people, and the one named Lucy is what they referenced in the book. And I'm like, wait a minute, where are they getting this? Where's the scientific proof behind this? There is none. There is actually no scientific proof that anybody lived 3 million years ago or that anything lived 3 million years ago. And so I started researching it, and I realized that through some study of Genesis and some of those creation museum folks realized that the world was created by God in 7 days, and there is no 3 million years ago. And so if we have that as our context in science, it changes the entire view of the way we look at things. So as I looked at the hominid story, I started saying, well, what are the justifications? So how do we know if something's 3 million years old? So if you actually do the research, carbon dating is a theory. So I wonder which scientist actually proved that carbon dating is accurate. Well,
Right.
nobody's been 3 million years old, so they have no idea how to do that. And when it was tested with things that were at a known life, it was not right. So that was the first thing that got me. And then, fast forward into the Industrial Revolution, they had 4 key items, and one of them was the steam engine and the steamboat, and then the other one was Marxist Communist Manifesto and Darwin's Origin of Species. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm starting to see a theme here. They're promoting Darwin's Origin of Species as a breakthrough in the Industrial Revolution, as well as Marx's communism. And so it's amazing what you find when you start opening the doors of the book. And we can go into that in a lot of detail because I spoke for 1 hour and 15 minutes to that school board, telling them all the different things that were wrong with it. And what did they do? Approved.
Yep. You know, it's like living in the twilight zone. You show them all of this stuff. I sent out myself when I started exposing a lot of this in the South Georgia area, again, the Bible Belt of the Bible Belt. And I proved to them that they were mowing down parental rights using social and emotional learning and doing all of these mental health operations on our children without the consent of parents, and that they were doing so without being legally qualified to delve into the minds of our children. And I sent them emails. It's all in writing. I sent it to them, and not one of them responded. They did not care. They did not vet any of this material. And then later on, off to the side, you get these phone calls from these board members that do care, but they're scared to say anything. And I'm like, well, why should you be scared to say anything? You're supposed to represent and protect children, not sign off on an omnibus stack of invoices for corrupt publications. It's unbelievable what's happening. So, I would assert that we are hovering right over the target. They don't like what we're revealing, and we need to just keep going and just be consistent with it and pray and ask God to give us the wisdom, and he'll open the doors. The truth will always be found. And Jack, I'm just so proud of you guys, you and your team, the way that you guys bond together, and you have attorneys that are willing to get involved. And that's the thing too. If you are an attorney or an attorney, especially a Christian attorney, they need to look at the overall condition of what's happening in our nation and in our schools, and they need to help people like us. And yeah, I'm saying that there's a lot of attorneys that need to come and help pro bono, even, because this is a dire situation, and our children need all the help they can get to get access, so we can get access to these programs and show the parents, because we are in a post-trust era with the schools. I used to be real careful not to say, get your kids out of public schools, but now get your kids out of public schools. There's no benefit to them right now at all. Your children would be far better being at your home and learning at your kitchen table with a regular book like we used to learn when we were students. Would you say amen to that, guys?
Amen.
Absolutely, yeah. And I was the same way you were, really reluctant to say, exit the public schools because there's so many kids who may not have the financial wherewithal to do that, or parents that may not have the financial wherewithal, but the options are growing. And the value proposition of keeping your kid in a public school versus the risk of indoctrination into so many different bad ideals is ridiculous. And students spending time with their parents and learning their values and learning with a parent, parents can find ways to help teach their kids certain things. But I'm totally on board with you.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to mention a couple of things that you had kind of talked through there. One is, getting people involved. This can't be a one-man show, right?
Right.
Or a one-woman show. And you know that as well. All of us do. And what CDF has been doing is getting pastors and churches and our church members involved. I have so many folks that are in my Sunday school and in our church. I go down the hall, they're like, Jack, hey, thanks for you. I had no idea who they were, but they're following what they're doing. They're getting involved because of things that we mentioned. So one of them was an election worker because we mentioned it. One of them is an election watcher. So people are getting involved. They need a little help on how to get involved. And so my thought process, and we had talked about this prior to the call, I think if we're going to go into this next month and go into deep dive, wouldn't it be great if people started the process of gathering information? And for me, that first thing was that vendor list. Because
Yep.
when I saw Parents on the Level and I saw the list of the vendors that you have in there that are castle.org vendors, or that are sex education vendors, or that are news content vendors, all these vendors, I was able to just pull right out just by doing a control find in my Excel spreadsheet. So I asked them for a list of all the vendors and the address and phone number for the vendor and a contact. Well, they gave me the address, and many of the vendors, you know exactly what they're about when they're coming out of Chicago and Portland and LA and this
Yes.
and that. So you'll see the difference between a local vendor that they're using versus some of these, SAVVAS type vendors. But that I think is an important thing for people to use as a starting point, because you got to have the data before you can start, getting real involved. You can ask questions, and I love to talk to the school people and say, what do you think about this? What do you know about SEL? I'll tell you what, I've got a 12-page legal document that has citings and references and all kinds of things about SEL. I hope that's in Parents on the Level. We need to make sure that's linked in there, because that's
Yes.
research that they can dig their teeth into, and not everybody's going to want to read it. But if you have a question about what it really is, castle.org, or what really is SEL, or why we would be concerned about it, that 12-page document that our legal team put together is an astounding awakening on what the real problem is. Because if you Google it, well, you're going to get what Google wants you to know.
That's right. And many times you won't get anything. I mean, I think it's very interesting. There's been a little Twitter storm about the things you Google, especially if it comes to our presidential candidates right now. If you Google one, you get the other and all kind of things. So yeah, Google is definitely not your friend in this kind of work. That is for sure. That is for sure. Jack, I am just absolutely I'm so glad that you were able to come on and just talk with everyone about what you went through. I want to kind of end our little talk right here with you and me right now. As far as the last question I want to ask is, was there any point when you were looking up this information with your school district where you felt like you were just going to quit?
No, it just got me infuriated. And what I really wanted to do is get more people involved. And when I explained to people what I was finding, that's when they said, well, I want to look too. I want to help you with that. And honestly, I had some nefarious characters. One person who I knew was very close to the school superintendent said, hey, I'll help you with that. And I said, well, here's my first half of the book research. take a look at it and let me know what you find. And it was nasty stuff. And she got back to me. She used to be in the school district for 30 years. And she's like, I don't really see anything wrong with this. I'm not sure what the problem is. And never followed up with me. So you've got to be aware of who you're working with. And I knew who she was. I knew when I sent it to her, it's going to go straight to the superintendent. So I wanted them to know what I found without me having to do a public record request or something like that. But no, it's frustrating. It is whack-a-mole. You're going to find so many things. Wait a minute, I'm in a 75% conservative community here, and we've got this stuff that's pervasive, and our school district is not proactively looking at it. They're actually slowing it down. And I think that's because good people are getting elected. We have some good people on our school board that have been elected, but they're being given information to say, now, citizen school board member, this is what you need to do. Don't complain to anybody. Don't bring up anything at a school board meeting. Don't do anything that's going to get you in legal trouble. You need to just vote for what we have. And, if you want to ask a question, ask it when we meet privately. Don't ask it at a school board meeting because that's going to open a whole can of worms. So there's a process that the administrative state locally has been working. And every district has those people who have been in their roles for 30 years or 10 years or whatever. And they are just controlling what is being put forth to these elected officials. So many of them aren't realizing what's going on. And that's problematic
exactly right.
for me. Yeah.
That is exactly right. And I refer to it the same way. It's just like you have in DC, you have what people call the deep state. In every school district, you have an administrative state there too. Hillsdale College had shown a chart golly, a long time ago, it's been a few years ago, where they talked about the growth, and I've shown this on some of my previous webinars, the growth of the administrative state between the year 2000 and 2019 had grown nearly 90%, and it's probably more than that now. So yes, they definitely do that, and a lot of that, we know that huge, deep dynamic in it is geared toward mental health, and that is so dangerous. So all right. Well, Jack, I tell you what, be on standby because I'm going to have people asking you questions in just a moment. But I wanted to give you guys a couple of resources that I'm going to share screen and show you as well, because these will be things that you can use in the future to, just help. And also, next month, maybe you'll see these resources and you can have questions lined up for me. You can even email me ahead of time and I can tell you what I know about them in case you're fighting this in your own district. So let me share screen here real quick. Let's see, we've got this. Just a minute. I always want to hit command instead of shift. So anyway, all right. I guess y'all saw where I was watching the weather there for a minute. Okay, so this is going to be our standard PDF that I will go over in detail next month, okay? But I did want to just hit the highlights of this. So, we're going to have this where you can use it. And it'll also be, I'm going to go ahead and put this up because I'm not going to have the ELA stuff on there yet tonight, but I will have the part 2 document because that one is, it's almost a webinar in itself. ELA is where you will find most of the full integration of SEL in the core curricula. So that's pretty much it. So anyway, though, just really quick, Pearson, again, as far as it's SAVVAS, Pearson, they're one and the same. SAVVAS is just a rebranding. And it's one and the same. They've acquired a couple of other companies, Who's Reading, Rubicon Publishing, and Outlier. And we will look into those a little bit more as of next time. This is the screenshot I was referring to you about how they've changed their name to Savvy or SAVVAS, and they said think Savvy. So yeah, that's their little cuteness there. And a lot of good just expose documents. Now, Jack has done he's done his own expose pretty much especially with the world history part. He did an excellent job. That's where you'll see this one link that's right here with his name on it. He and his team have done that one. So that will take you straight into that, and it will take you into a lot of other areas too. And matter of fact, we probably have a few duplicate links going back and forth. So anyway, one of the things that, we had shared and talked about before Jack had done his expose too, is that we found it very interesting that the Heritage Foundation had already gone in and looked at it as well. So they were challenging the government to go in and look at this woke ideology. If there is a company that's woke, it is Pearson SAVVAS. It straight out is. So there's all kind of information. Look at their reviews. Their reviews are all horrible. And yet they win almost every ed tech award you can imagine over the years. So it can't be one and the same. These awards, when you look at library books that are coming in, you will notice that they'll sail right into the shelf if it has an award on it to just get that woke curriculum or woke information right there to those kids. I think the same things happen with the publishers, because a superintendent will say, oh, it's got an award on it or whatever. I don't know. But I really believe that, that we're being gaslit as to this being such a fabulous thing for the Cody Awards. However, I think one of them is valid, and that would be, I'll show you that one in a minute. Just bear with me one moment when I get to that part, because I'm really going to fly on this part, but I want to draw some things out for you. So they have horrible reviews, and they are domed with the prestige of being the champion educational company for the gender spectrum. Folks, that's enough to discredit this company all on its own. That is enough. So this is what I'm talking about. SAVVAS Learning. When I look at my little county where some of my family lives in Tift County, Georgia, that they would spend nearly $700,000 with this corrupt company, it leaves me more than scratching my head. It's just absolutely terrible. So that is right there. And they've partnered with other groups here. You can check that out. Now they have, of course, you'll get a 404 on this if you look for it yourself. So you have to look at this link here for the web archive. So anytime you're finding information that you think they would want to censor and take down so you can't prove something, learn how to put this stuff in the Wayback Machine. It's not that hard. Just click up on the left side, click on there, and it'll show you how to save it. So there you go. They also have their ESG recognition, where they're getting rated by the social governance scores. They're rated with Stonewall. They've got the Bloomberg Gender Equality Index, Clean 200. Y'all look at all of that, because they are committed to woke and all things woke. They have been charged with a cyber breach. So all of your child's, all of the information that you have there for your children, everything about them that they're collecting, all of it was, just read the article. It's terrible. I think they got fined $1 million or something. DEI, it is in every single aspect of their work, and they're proud of it. They absolutely talk about it. So Bethlehem Forza, okay, so here's where the awards come in. I want to bring that back into this for a moment. Bethlehem Forza, the CEO of SAVVAS Learning Company, here's her quote: "At the center of everything we do is a drive to help all learners succeed." Well, that sounds great, but expanding equity and inclusion in learning is essential to this. Our work is deeply focused on developing teaching strategies, which would be culturally relevant teaching, that welcome individual voices, allow each child to participate in conversations, and to promote student agency or activism. So folks, there's a lot that means. That quote right there, you can break that down and you understand this is the leadership. So she has been nominated, or not nominated, she won the award. Where did my stuff go? Hang on. Oh, it's my, hang on a minute. There it goes. Sometimes it doesn't want to catch up. And then here's more DEI stuff. The list is endless, okay? So, and here, this is some of their stuff where they totally talk about culturally relevant teaching. This is one of the graphs on there, so you can look into all that. But here's Miss Bethlehem Forza. And so here's all of her background, and she won an award from Cody and that's CODIE, Cody Education Technology winners. She won for the most influential thought leader in ed tech. Okay, she was the winner. Now let me show you why too. Here's her background. She's been with Pearson for years. Before that, she was the executive vice president of product development and publishing operations for Houghton Mifflin. Before that, I mean, she was with them for, a relatively good amount of years. She also was a partner for a global head of publishing industry. So she's learned the global systems, because we all know that they were trying to make global citizens of our children. This right here is a concern. She's been involved in a lot of places that would show you, her commitment to bringing this into a woke, just woke ideology all throughout the school and so many things. But her mother also worked for the UN. She has that in this video. So there's just a lot, you have to look at people all together. And I believe that there's several of these people that are also involved in the RAND Corporation, studying some of that stuff too. And I'll bring a little bit more of that to you. So when you think about the fact that they are involved as heavily as they are with the gender spectrum, and if you have not looked at the gender spectrum and what that means, look at those documents. You've got their gender support plan where they ask all of these invasive questions. I have all of these links on the form for you. They don't just have, the gender support plan where they ask particular questions of the students, but then they have a recap on how they're going to communicate all of these lies and keep it away from the parents. So folks, this right here in itself disqualifies this from being any kind of organization that you would want in your school system, I assure you. So you will have all of that at your fingertips to go for it and talk about it with your people there in your area. Now, next month, I'm going to be really focusing on number 3 here. And anyway, my perspectives, my view, reading for relevance, all of these libraries, they have almost every book that they have qualified as banned, which we know they're not banned. You can't even sell them if they're banned. They have most all of them used in the assignments. So we'll show you some of that because we have access to the program. So anyway, this is something that everyone needs to really look into and understand that this is absolutely crazy. They made, I believe it was $467.5 million per year. Their revenue per employee is $252,000. So there you go. You're seeing a good bit. Global citizenship, of course, it's promoted. And so that's really as far as I've gotten on here, and we will put more on there, but that's enough to keep you busy for a large amount of time. Finally, let me do this and then we're going to open up for questions. I want to show you one more thing. There it is. All right. This is the parents' level of confidence process that I have outlined for you to use just as something that you can take and put it before your friends and illustrate what a school should look like. Because a lot of people think that there's this neutral avenue we can travel in, and that would be the level 2 caution school, but there's still such a lack of transparency. It's like what Jack was describing earlier, that, I can trust these. I know this person, whatever, but that person wasn't doing their due diligence and looking into these companies, right? So you think, well, I might have a little caution, but not much. You can't do that. You've got to look at the learning the materials, digital materials. So anyway, what we've done is we've described for you what these these different levels would be. And, you can kind of go and then take this to your superintendent, even show it to him and just say, can you tell me what level you think our school is? Do you have all of these systems right here in your school? Because I don't trust those systems, and have a conversation. You don't have to be combative. Just ask them, is this in your school? And get them to say it to your face or put it in writing in an email. And then here's a lot of the things like Jack was saying, it is a process. It's not an overnight thing. It's not a quick fix. This is a process. And the thing is, when you show this to parents that this is what it would take to eradicate all of this, to make their school safe, they're going to get to thinking, they're going to say, there's too many moles to whack. I can't deal with all of this. So then comes the parent notification letter, compliments of the Child and Parental Rights Campaign. There's been a few additions and adjustments to that. I know Diane has also published this at Protect Ohio Children. I think we may have changed a couple of items in it, so you might want to compare them. But anyway, hang on a minute. So there's several different things that you can read through and decide what you want to do. Now, here's an example. This would be a Moab, mother of all bombs, if you were to give this particular open record. I did this on purpose so you could just look at all of the things that you need to know. I would not do it like a Moab at all, or they will flat out come out with teeth against you and you will be hurt. I'm just kidding. Anyway, you need to do this a little at a time, but I wanted to put all of these ideas in here for you. And some of these things that are in here, I haven't even covered on my webinars yet. But we will get to them. So, but read through this. I'm going to have this on the website tonight as well. So anyway, just letting you know that we have ways for you to take a peek at all of these things, look at them together with us, and you know, don't forget, you can always ask questions. So with that, I will end it and say, let's go ahead with the questions.
Yeah, so Marcia, before we take the questions, I just want to interject a question, comment from an Ohio perspective. Protect Ohio Children leaders have done the Herculean efforts as well around open records requests. And in Ohio, the law states that they need, once the public record is submitted, it needs to be responded to and returned within a quote reasonable amount of time, which is extremely vague. And so often it's like the black hole and there's no response, or if there is a response, it's very dicey. Many times you won't get it. So I noticed that Jack in his comments talked about lawsuits and legal angling that's being done around the open records. I wonder if you could elaborate a little bit more, Jack, about how is that going when you face resistance on your open records request? What's your recommendation for us in Ohio? We really have reached an impasse with our school districts and many, many school districts.
Yeah, so most of the times they're getting us the public records, but we have to make sure that they don't answer us like a politician, answer what they want to answer, not answer what we asked. So we get that several times. So you got to be careful. If you want something, you need to be very specific. And Marcia has that long list of things you could ask. If you ask for all of that, they're going to say it's going to be $10,000.
Right.
And so that's one of the things we have to be concerned about is give a small question in your public record request. And so for the one that I'm in litigation, I said, well, what are you doing teaching this ripple effects information in our schools? And then once I know who the vendor is, I say, give me the contracts with those vendors. And then I say, tell me how you told the teachers to teach this or to explain it. And then I said, well, give me access to that material. And that's when they gave me a dozen different excuses, literally a dozen different reasons. Here's the website. We don't have it. You can't have it. It's trade secret. They want to. And so there are organizations around the country that will help you with your public records lawsuits. Citizen Defending Freedom, we are aligned with many of those organizations. This one in particular, we're doing ourselves because it's in Florida and we have several going on in Florida. So if you need help with that, our legal team may be able to refer you to someone who is with a law firm who does that pro bono for organizations like us that are doing this. But the key is to ask that first public record request as if you're going to court, because that may be the start of something. I asked with this lawsuit, my first request was July 17th of last year. And then I had several follow-ups with each one of those. And then by January, or December, we had to engage legal counsel. And then that's a process. And then we had 2 hearings. It's a long process. You don't want to go to court, and they don't either.
Right.
But you have to realize in Florida, it's section 119. That is the law that says you should have public records. And it says who can ask for them and what should the contract say. Our contracts with our school district for a vendor don't even mention the section 119 responsibility that vendor has. So it's a diss on the school system, it's diss on the vendor. And it just creates another layer of confusion because they're not doing what they're supposed to do. If they do refuse to give you information, they need to tell you specifically what statute says they don't need to give it to you. They didn't do that for us either. So they're learning a lot about how this process works. It looks like you have something you want to say, Marcia.
Well, I like that you're emphasizing that you have to be tenacious and not give up, keep going, be specific. And, where needed, you may need to get the attorneys. In Ohio, the law is on our side as well. In
Mhm.
Ohio, parents have a right to know everything their child is being taught. So thank you for that. That's what we need to do, is to continue to be tenacious and keep asking specific questions. We have a question. Marcia, could you please show us how to navigate your website to get to this information that you plan to update tonight?
Yes. Yes. Thank you for that. All right, let's go. parentsonthelevel.com. Oh, there it is. All right, so we're at parentsonthelevel.com. When you sail into it, you're going to come to this cute little boy holding a laptop. Up here is SEL Exposed. You click on that tab and you will be able to get it. Like this was last month's, or actually this was June. We took a month off for vacation. So you'll notice little action buttons here that will have both the, like for this one, when you push that one, that goes to my Dropbox, and there's that Newsella expose that has the document that you can use with your school board that will show you all the different things I showed you last month. And I've been invited to come on American Family Radio. I think it's somewhere in the middle of the month here, to talk about Newsella, because so many people are very upset and about that. So anyway, look for that as well. I'll let you know on my Facebook page. Another thing that you can do when you are looking through here is I'm going to have those forms listed, parent notification forms, where you can come into right there. So that's where those other forms will be. Also, you'll notice I'm doing a blog and a podcast now that talks about the different things going on. So you can listen to those if you have time. And, it's just a shorter hit. Now, I did take a little more time to develop what I call the Harris-Biden administration with Title IX. So, and I have listed here the states that are not protected versus the states that are, that do have a preliminary injunction or appeal that's helping, stop the process for the time being. So we have a lot to pray about. So anyway, that's how you get to it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We have several comments from Patty here about her FOIAs. She ran into problems and requested minutes of a meeting a year ago, and also one a couple months ago, and was told there were no minutes. So yeah, they lie. We know that. And but we just have to keep going and keep asking those questions. Are we getting any other questions today? If you want to enter them into the chat.
So while we're waiting for the next question, I just want to put one more idea in Newsella. What happened when I saw the Newsella that you had mentioned, Marcia, I went to our school system and I said, where do we have Newsella? Well, they don't have a contract anymore. Well, then we found out Newsella is a free service. So I asked, show me all of the URLs that are using Newsela. So they have a network and they can show you who logged into Newsela, right? That's how they police people going to websites that are inappropriate. So I actually got a list of, so now I know which schools or which teachers, and they just kind of blew it off. Oh, they're just, you know, out there looking. So there's ways to find out. You just have to keep asking different questions. Regarding the minutes, you should look at what their policy is regarding keeping minutes or a video, and you may want to tell them to change their policy because
Yes.
they may be breaking the law if they don't have records of public meetings.
There are many laws that schools are breaking. Like I know, like I found several of them myself. If they're supposed to do a public comment period and they don't do it, or if they're supposed to list all of their materials on their website and they're not doing it, and people just they don't read the law to know to enforce it. So there's a lot of that going on. You know, Jack, one of the things that I failed to point out when you were looking up what was going on with social and emotional learning, and you had that layer there with an outside vendor. Talk about that for a second. And you know, if we go over a minute, it'll be okay. If people need to leave, they'll leave and they'll come
What
back
do you
for the
mean a
recording.
layer with an outside vendor?
Well, remember you said that they were using a counseling service that was coming into the school system
Oh,
that
okay.
had, yeah, that. Tell them that story real quick, because guys, this is a way they firewall and protect SEL from the general public when they're learning about it.
Yeah, so this is part of our lawsuit. There's a group in town that does mental health support for the school district. And so the school has a contract, an MOU, a memorandum of understanding with them. And they're essentially delegating school responsibility to this organization. By default, if you delegate school responsibility to an organization, they are now subject to public record requests. And then so this organization is using a software package that they're putting in front of the children. And they're saying, well, that software package isn't subject to public record. So it is by extension, because what they're doing is they are delivering these mental health services in the school. They're referring the children over to this organization on behalf of the school district. The school district is responsible for mental health, behavioral issues, those types of things. And those are all very well specifically stated in the school district's responsibility that they are undertaking. And what they've done is they've outsourced this to a vendor. Interestingly, the school district has PhDs and master's graduates and things like that. This organization, we don't know what their certifications are. I think it may just be a BA degree. And that's for tier 2 support versus just tier 1 that they do at the school. So you have a larger issue and you delegate it out to somebody who's less prepared and less trained than who you have on school district. So there's a host of issues with delegating out and then claiming that that is not part of it. It clearly is, and the law in the Section 119 here in Florida public records statutes are totally with us on that.
That is fantastic discovery.
Marcia, a couple questions before we end today. Could you just briefly explain what you mean by media literacy?
Oh, yes, I'd be glad to. The Newsela presentation that I did in June really goes into a lot of this, and you'll notice a video by Mike Benz, who was a cybersecurity official for the Trump organization. He has a title a mile long, I forget all of it. But anyway, what is going on? And I could kind of tell this was going on with Newsela, because they have this organization that was largely funded by Mark Zuckerberg called Advantis Media that was telling everyone what media resources that were credible, which ones were newsworthy, that had credible resources. And when you go look at it, it was like a gaslighting extravaganza, because they were saying things like CNN was the most credible, or MSNBC or NPR. And a lot of these we know are giving us a very vague view of the world. We'll just put it that way to be nice. But anyway, media literacy is where too now they're wanting to codify into law that our schools can only use such resources in papers and literature projects done by students, and where they are going to be taught that, like, truthful media, like heaven knows this broadcast we're giving you here, they would not ever want a student to use this as a reference for a paper, because they would say that we are extreme, conspiracy theorists and all that. So they're doing it to minimize truth so they can bring in, like what Jack was describing to you about the earth being 3 million years old and you cannot prove it. All of those things, because they are trying to, like he said, sanitize truth and lead children into places for information in their education that is controlled by the narrative, by the woke media, by this particular Marxist structure. So that's what I mean by it. So there's a lot to learn about it. And there's a lot of good video clips that explain that information in that Newsella presentation.
Okay, we've got a couple more here. Do schools by law have to provide parents login for digital licenses?
So I'll answer that for Florida. The answer is I believe yes. They're contesting it because they're saying that it's a trade secret. But there's absolutely nothing in any of the contracts or any of the agreements or even any of the terms and conditions that say anything about trade secrets. So my suggestion is go to your state, go to Google and say your state statutes on public records, and you'll be directed right to the statute, and most likely you'll be able to say it's textbook, it's written, it's online, it's all these different forms of information, because most of the educational information is online now. So they can't say, well, know that it's online, it's not public record. It's typically specified right in your statute in your state. And when I did my public record request, I would put that in there and say, according to the statute, you need to give this to me.
That's right.
Okay, comment, yes, conservative media are critically important. Writing articles, etc., gets the word out. And then the last question, thank you for another wonderful presentation about school records requests. Is there evidence schools are filtering them through predictive AI to profile the parent or citizen? If so, has the algorithm been challenged for fairness? That sounds pretty deep.
That is very deep. I would love to talk to whoever's mind that came out of. Sounds very interesting to me. So, AI is something that they say if you don't study, you're going to be left behind, and we all need to study that. And, it's a good question to ask. So that would be something good to look into.
Yeah,
Sure.
I like how they're thinking. It's a whole new world of deception, infiltration, and probably everything you're suggesting is probably true.
Yeah, and when you go back through this pick the lock process and you think about what we're looking at here, and you go from, like, we've got the level 1 spotlight school, the level 2 caution light school, the level 3 stoplight school. That's what we call them. And then we've defined what each one is. Our kids are plugged into this grid with these interoperable systems and with artificial intelligence that God knows is only, who knows what it's doing. I would recommend for you to get a grip to understand how these systems could possibly be interacting with other systems. And they are, because I just showed you that Pearson had one of the biggest data breaches. Oh, we've had a data breach, my goodness. Could it have been planned? It could have been, to where they can connect those interoperable resources with social media. And literally, everyone, literally, I'm not making any accusations here, but literally everything's in place where you could traffic any child down to the minute plugged into this grid. Just think about that, let it sink in, because that is where we are in a global world, and we've got this global just challenge to guard the hearts and minds of our children so they don't get converted with the Castle 5 competencies. It's transformative. They say that in their documents. They are a transformative process. Folks, when we talk transforming, we're talking about their mind and their heart. So if you are a Christian parent, or if you're a parent of any belief system and you don't want them transformed into the woke mind virus, I would say you've got some choices to make, and we've given you everything we know to give you to help you understand it. So anyway, this right here, when you put these illustrations in front of people and you describe what a school looks like that would be a good school, free of all of that ideology driven information, free of all that being plugged into the grid, all of that, you know, we're trying to draw the picture so people can say, there's no way I could keep up with this. I've got to get my kid out.
Okay, Marcia, well, that's it for today, and we'll be back next time talking about SAVVAS. Is that right? In your next?
That's right. We're gonna continue on SAVVAS, and I'll probably touch on a few other things too. I sure want to thank our special guest, Jack Nockey, for coming and being with us today. Let's all give him a rounder for Jack. Thank you so much, Jack, and you keep on keeping on. We're right there with you. Have a great day. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.